Thanksgiving Day, the kind of holiday where everyone expects warmth, togetherness, and good food. But let's be honest, no Thanksgiving is ever perfect. Someone always burns something, someone always drinks too much, and someone always brings up politics at the table. In this story, none of that matters, because something even crazier happened. On this particular Thanksgiving, my older brother Dave changed all of our lives with one tiny piece of cardboard, a lottery ticket. But before the chaos, let me paint you the scene. The whole family was crammed into my parents' house. The kitchen smelled like turkey, stuffing, sweet potatoes, and just a hint of something burnt because my aunt had already set off the smoke alarm trying to caramelize her pie. The living room was chaos. Kids were running around, screaming like they had eaten a pound of sugar before arriving. The dog was stealing food directly off the coffee table. Grandma was yelling at the TV, smacking the remote because she still believes hitting it makes the batteries work better. And in the middle of all this madness sat my brother Dave. Now, Dave is, how do I put this politely? Dave is the dreamer of the family. He is the guy who thinks his big break is always just around the corner. He plays fantasy football like it's a career. He tells us he is networking every time he spends 5 hours at the bar, and on every single holiday without fail, Dave brings a stack of lottery scratch-offs to the table. He says it is his tradition. Everyone else says it is his way of avoiding actual conversation. This year, Dave walked in with a fresh pile of tickets from the gas station. He put them down right next to his plate before even saying hello to Grandma. My sister rolled her eyes and said, "Maybe this year you'll win enough to pay me back for all the times I bought you lunch." Everyone laughed. Dave just grinned and said, "You'll see." Dinner had not even started yet, and already the energy was weird. My dad just wanted a normal meal where everyone behaved. My mom was begging us to take nice family photos before we got food all over our clothes. My sister was scrolling on her phone, ignoring everyone. My aunt was loudly insisting that her pie was not burnt, it was rustic. And then there was Dave sitting at the table, tapping his scratch-off coins against his plate like a drummer, just waiting for the right moment to start scratching. You could feel the tension. Half the family was ready to laugh at him again, and the other half was just hoping he wouldn't ruin dinner. As the turkey came out of the oven, golden and steaming, everyone gathered around the table. Plates were filled, drinks were poured, and for one brief moment, it felt like a normal Thanksgiving. Then Dave cleared his throat. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his shiny stack of lottery tickets, and placed them on the table with the drama of a magician revealing his trick. Everyone groaned in unison. My mom begged him, "Can you wait until after dinner?" Dave shook his head and smirked. "Tradition," he said. And that was the moment we should have known. This Thanksgiving wasn't going to be about turkey or family or gratitude. This was going to be about Dave and his ticket to chaos. Dinner was served. Plates were filled with turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and gravy. For a short moment, everyone was focused on food. Dave, however, had his eyes locked on the stack of lottery tickets. He pulled one out, grabbed a coin, and began scratching while everyone else was chewing. The first ticket was a loser. He crumpled it and tossed it aside with dramatic flair. The second ticket was also a loser. The family laughed quietly, shaking their heads. The third ticket came close to a win, but not quite. Dave announced, "This one is a tease." My sister rolled her eyes and said, "Same story every year." The atmosphere was filled with turkey aroma and the sound of forks scraping plates, but Dave was in his own world. On the fifth ticket, something changed. Dave froze halfway through scratching. His hand started to shake. He leaned closer to the card, breathing hard. Everyone noticed and went silent. Even the dog stopped barking, almost as if it understood that something big was happening. Dave's voice cracked as he said, "Wait, no way this is real." He scratched faster, coins clinking against the card, and his eyes grew wider with every number revealed. Finally, he dropped the coin and shouted, "I won!" The whole table jumped. Forks hit plates. Grandma gasped so loudly she almost choked on her cranberry sauce. The little cousin screamed, thinking something terrible had happened. My dad muttered, "What now?" Dave leapt out of his chair, knocking it over. He raised the ticket above his head like a trophy. "I won $10 million!" he yelled. His voice echoed through the house. The turkey platter shifted dangerously as the table shook from his sudden movement. A glass of wine tipped over, splashing across the tablecloth. No one cared. All eyes were on the ticket in his hand. Mom started crying instantly. My baby finally caught a break. She hugged him so tightly that Dave nearly lost grip of the card. He pulled back, clutching it to his chest like it was a newborn child. Shock turned into chaos. My sister slammed her fork down and shouted, "You better pay off my student loans!" "I mean it." My aunt clapped her hands and said, "This is destiny." I knew someone in this family would be chosen. Grandma muttered, "About time." The younger kids started chanting, "We are rich. We are rich." The dog barked along with the chant, making it sound like a carnival instead of Thanksgiving. My dad rubbed his temples and whispered, "This will ruin everything." Meanwhile, Dave stood in the center of the storm, grinning like a champion, waving the ticket in one hand and a drumstick in the other. Dinner was forgotten. The turkey cooled on the table, the pie sat untouched, and the gravy slowly spread from the earlier spill. All anyone could think about was the winning ticket. Every face around the table was lit up with a different dream. Cars, houses, vacations, freedom from bills. Dave had dreamed of this moment for years, but even he looked overwhelmed. His hand shook as he tucked the ticket carefully into his shirt pocket. He whispered to himself, "This changes everything." And in that instant, the family shifted from celebrating together to calculating silently what they could each gain. Thanksgiving had officially turned into a battlefield. The moment Dave announced he had won, my mom burst into tears. She grabbed a napkin and started sobbing into it, crying, "I knew you were destined for greatness. I always believed in you." She hugged him again and nearly bent the ticket in half. Dave had to pry himself free, muttering, "Careful, this is worth more than everything in this house combined." At the same time, my aunt whipped out her phone and started dialing numbers. "I have to tell everyone, they will not believe this. $10 million right in our family." Dave panicked. "Stop! Do not tell anyone until I cash it in." But she was already bragging to Aunt Linda on speakerphone. My dad finally spoke, his voice heavy and calm, the way a man talks right before delivering bad news. He leaned forward, steepled his hands, and said, "This kind of money will destroy us if you are not careful." The room went silent. Everyone stared at him. He continued, "Money changes people. It will turn this family into enemies. You need to invest wisely. Real estate, index funds, maybe municipal bonds." Dave nodded politely, but you could see in his eyes he was not hearing a single word about bonds. He was picturing a bright orange Lamborghini. My sister slammed her glass onto the table and locked eyes with Dave. "So you are paying off my student loans, right?" "That is not a request. You owe me. I drove you to work for 2 years when you did not even have a car." Dave laughed nervously. "We will see." She shouted back, "We will see? You are seriously going to keep $10 million and not help your own sister?" She turned to the rest of us. Tell him he owes me." The tension was building. You could feel the air heating up. Grandma clapped her hands loudly, cutting through the argument. "Enough! I have a list of what I want." Everyone stared at her. She pulled out a notepad she had hidden in her purse, like she had been waiting for this day her whole life. Number 1, a swimming pool. Number 2, a trip to Paris. Number 3, a fur coat for her cat. Nobody even knew the cat wore clothes, but apparently Grandma had a vision. Dave stuttered, "Grandma, I did not even cash the ticket yet." She waved him off. "Do not waste time. Money disappears if you do not spend it." The kids started chanting again. "We are rich. We are rich." They ran circles around the table until one of them tripped and knocked over the gravy boat, splattering more food onto the already stained tablecloth. The dog barked and jumped, trying to lick it up. The room was a madhouse. My mom was crying with joy. My sister was fuming with rage. My aunt was broadcasting the news to every relative. Grandma was making demands, and my dad was warning about financial doom. And in the middle stood Dave, still clutching the ticket to his chest, looking both thrilled and terrified. He whispered under his breath, This is either the best day of my life or the start of the end. The room had reached boiling point. My mom was still crying tears of joy, hugging Dave like he had just returned from war. My sister was demanding money like she was a debt collector. My aunt was screaming into her phone, telling distant cousins that she was about to be rich by association. Dad raised his voice over the chaos. Everyone calm down. If we do not handle this carefully, the money will rip this family apart. But no one was listening. Half the family sided with Dave, cheering and celebrating, while the other half argued about who deserved what share. Even the kids picked sides. One yelled, "Uncle Dave is buying me Disneyland." Another shouted back, "No, he is buying me a pony." The dog barked louder as if trying to claim his own cut of the winnings. Dave stood up on his chair, waving his arms to get attention. He still had turkey grease on his fingers, but he pointed dramatically and shouted, "Listen, this is my moment. I am finally free. No more lectures, no more jokes at my expense. I am rich now. $10 million. I can buy whatever I want." He paused, then declared, "First thing I am buying is a Lamborghini." The entire table exploded in disbelief. Mom gasped. Dad slammed his fist on the table. "A car? That is how you waste your future?" Grandma scribbled swimming pool twice on her list to make sure it was not forgotten. My sister snapped. She stood up, knocking her chair backward, and shouted, "This is unbelievable. You are talking about buying a Lamborghini while I am drowning in debt. You owe me, Dave. You always owe me." She pointed across the table, shaking with anger. "I want my loans gone. I want a new car. And I want it before you waste it all on toys." Dave shouted back, "It is my money. I can do whatever I want." For a moment, they were nose to nose across the table, glaring like boxers before a fight. Just when it seemed like it could not get more ridiculous, Grandma spoke again. She tapped her fork against her glass, trying to restore order. "Excuse me? I have priorities. I will not die before I swim in my own pool. I want it heated, tiled, and with steps gentle enough for my knees." Then she turned to Dave and added, "And do not forget the fur coat for my cat. He deserves luxury too." The table fell silent for a second, everyone staring at Grandma in disbelief. The silence lasted only 3 seconds before people erupted into laughter, shouting, or groaning in frustration. By now, the turkey was stone cold, the gravy had congealed, and no one was eating. Voices overlapped as the house turned into a battlefield. The kids were running in circles chanting, "We are rich." The aunt was on the phone telling someone that she was moving into a mansion. My sister was still yelling at Dave about her loans. Grandma was describing the exact shade of marble she wanted for her pool deck. In the middle of it all, Dave was sweating through his shirt, clutching the ticket like it was the last piece of treasure on earth. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Everyone stop! This is my win, not yours." But nobody stopped. The family was too far gone. Thanksgiving had become a war over money that no one even had yet. In the middle of the shouting match, Dave reached into his shirt pocket to check the ticket. His face went pale. The pocket was empty. He shouted, "Where is it?" The entire family froze. Forks stopped clinking. The dog stopped barking. For 5 terrifying seconds, everyone thought the $10 million ticket was gone. The little cousin lifted the gravy boat and shouted, "Is this it?" The ticket was stuck underneath, soggy with gravy. Dave screamed, No, 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 do not touch it." He grabbed it, wiped it gently with a napkin, and held it up to the light. His hands were shaking so badly it looked like he might rip it in half. Dave sat back down, clutching the wet ticket like a sacred artifact. His girlfriend leaned close and whispered, "You know this might not even be real. You have not checked it at the store yet." The room went silent again. Everyone stared at her. Dad sighed. "Of course. We are destroying the family over a piece of paper that has not even been verified." Mom gasped, "Do not ruin this moment." Grandma said, "It is real. The universe owes me a pool." The sister shouted, "If it is fake, I swear I will never forgive you." Dave's face was sweating. For the first time that night, he looked less like a champion and more like a man cornered in his own home. Dad stood up slowly and delivered the final gut punch. "This is exactly what I meant. We are already fighting like enemies, and we do not even know if this ticket is valid. This is not wealth. This is poison." The room fell heavy with his words. Even the kids stopped chanting. Dave swallowed hard, staring down at the gravy-stained ticket in his trembling hand. He whispered, "It has to be real. It just has to be." For the first time all evening, the room was quiet. Nobody touched the turkey. Nobody touched the pie. The smell of food filled the air, but nobody had an appetite anymore. Dave sat at the head of the table, clutching his ticket, with every set of eyes on him. Grandma muttered under her breath about heated pools. The sister sulked with her arms crossed. Mom dabbed her tears and whispered prayers. The aunt kept checking her phone, probably already telling people she was rich. It was supposed to be Thanksgiving. Instead, it looked like the aftermath of a courtroom trial. Finally, Dave stood, cleared his throat, and tried to bring back a shred of dignity. Even if this ticket is fake, tonight proved something. We are not ready for money. We are not ready for $10 million. We are not ready for $10,000. We cannot even handle Thanksgiving dinner without turning into vultures. He put the ticket on the table, looked around, and added with a weak smile, "At least this will be a Thanksgiving we never forget." The turkey was cold, the pie was burnt, and the family was more divided than ever. But he was right. No one would ever forget the night Thanksgiving dinner turned into a lottery meltdown. This is the end of that story. Every family has secrets. Some families argue about who gets the bigger bedroom. Some fight over who controls the TV remote. My family's secret was heavier. We were sitting on an inheritance worth $50 million, and the money was already splitting us apart before it ever hit our bank accounts. In the middle of this storm was my brother Michael. From the outside, he looked like a normal guy in a normal relationship. But the closer you got, the stranger the story became. Michael had been dating a woman named Claire for almost 2 years. She was witty, bold, and always had a sharp comeback for everything. At first, she seemed like the perfect match. They moved into a small apartment together, decorated it with mismatched furniture, and told everyone they were building a future. But my sister Anna never trusted Claire. From day one, she said Claire was a schemer. She claimed Claire was only with Michael because she knew about the inheritance. Whenever Claire bought something new, Anna would say, "Look, she is already spending your share." It became a running fight. Every family dinner was tense. The turkey would be on the table, the mashed potatoes steaming, and Anna would throw out some sly comment like, "Not everyone at this table is here for love." Claire would respond with the smile so fake you could almost hear it creak. Michael sat between them, sweating into his napkin, pretending not to hear anything. Our parents had passed away a few years earlier, leaving behind $50 million tied up in property, investments, and accounts. The money was supposed to come to Michael and Anna once the paperwork was finished. On paper, it was simple, split between siblings. In reality, it was a ticking time bomb. Every conversation came back to the inheritance. If Michael wanted to go on a trip, Anna said, "You should be saving your share." If Claire mentioned moving into a bigger apartment, Anna hissed, "With what money? His or yours?" The air in the room grew heavier every time someone mentioned the future. Anna and Claire treated each other like lifelong enemies. At birthdays, Claire would bring expensive wine and Anna would say, "Too bad you cannot buy class with that." At Christmas, Anna gave Michael a gift card with a note that said, "Spend it before she does." Claire fired back by buying Anna a self-help book titled, "How to Be Less Bitter." Michael laughed nervously at both gifts, pretending everything was fine, but everyone saw the cracks. Friends noticed, distant relatives whispered, the family gatherings became shows of fake smiles and hidden daggers. By the time Michael announced that Claire was moving in permanently, the house felt like a war zone. Anna rolled her eyes so hard she almost saw her brain. Claire responded by hugging Michael extra tightly, like she was claiming a prize. The money was not even in their accounts yet, but it already poisoned every conversation. Everyone could sense that something bigger was coming. The stage was set. A brother caught between his girlfriend and his sister, a fortune hanging over their heads, and a secret about to drop that would turn a cold rivalry into an all-out war. It was a Sunday night dinner at Anna's house. The table was set with pasta, garlic bread, and wine. Everyone was pretending to be civil, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Michael sat there sweating, twisting his fork in his hand. Finally, he cleared his throat and said, "I have something important to share." The room froze. Even the family dog stopped begging under the table. Claire reached over and grabbed Michael's hand, smiling nervously. He took a deep breath and said, "Claire is pregnant." Silence. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if time has stopped. Anna's fork clattered against her plate. She leaned forward, eyes wide. "She is pregnant with your child?" Michael nodded. Claire gave a shy smile, trying to soften the moment, but Anna's expression turned sharp. Instead of congratulations, she whispered coldly, "Do you even understand what this means for the inheritance?" Michael blinked. "This means I am going to be a father." Anna shook her head. "No, this means she just secured a claim to $50 million. Michael tried to calm his sister down. He said, "This is good news. This is family. You should be happy." But Anna slammed her hand on the table and shouted, "Happy? You think I should be happy that she trapped you? That she is carrying a ticket to my parents' fortune?" Claire finally spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. "This is not about money. I love him. We wanted this child." Anna laughed bitterly. "Love? You will be loving the luxury cars, the vacation homes, the bank accounts. You have been waiting for this moment since the day you met him." The wine glasses rattled as the tension rose higher. Michael stood up, red-faced, and shouted, "Enough! This is my child. Nothing you say can change that." He wrapped his arm around Claire, who was nearly in tears. Anna stood too, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She pointed across the table at Claire. "I will not let you steal what belongs to me. That money is my inheritance, my blood, my right. You think a baby is going to give you everything, but I will fight you for it." The room felt like a battlefield. The garlic bread sat untouched, the pasta grew cold, and the air was thick with fury. Michael tried one last time to bring peace. He said, "We can share. The inheritance does not have to tear us apart. This child is family. We can make this work." Anna's eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped low, almost like a threat. "If you think I am going to stand by and let you and your girlfriend take half of what is mine, you are wrong. You will see me in court before that happens." Michael froze. Claire's eyes widened in disbelief. The family dog whimpered under the table. That was the moment everyone realized. The inheritance was no longer just money. It was a weapon. And Anna was ready to use it. 2 weeks passed after that explosive dinner. Michael tried to call Anna, but she ignored him every time. Claire tried sending texts, soft messages like, "We can work this out," but Anna left them unread. The silence was worse than shouting. It was the silence of someone planning. One cold morning, Michael went to his mailbox and found a thick, heavy envelope stamped with the seal of the county court. He tore it open in the kitchen while Claire made coffee. His face turned white. Inside were legal papers. His own sister was suing him. The demand was bold and terrifying. $50 million. Michael whispered, "She's actually doing this." Claire grabbed the papers, scanned them, and laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. "This is insane. She cannot sue you for being pregnant." But Michael's shaking hand said otherwise. The lawsuit accused Claire of manipulating Michael for financial gain. It claimed she had intentionally become pregnant to secure a share of the inheritance. Anna's lawyers wrote page after page about protecting family wealth, about rightful heirs, about betrayal. Michael sat at the table, reading the words over and over, his head pounded. Claire's smile faded. She said, "She actually wrote that I trapped you? She is painting me as a gold digger in court." Michael nodded, unable to speak. The coffee pot beeped. Neither of them moved to pour it. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, but the taste of betrayal was stronger. The news spread through the family like wildfire. Cousins called each other. Uncles whispered about it at work. Old friends from high school sent messages asking if it was true. Half of the relatives sided with Anna. They said Claire had been scheming all along. The other half said Anna had lost her mind, that suing her own brother was the cruelest act possible. Thanksgiving was canceled. Christmas was split into 2 gatherings. People started choosing sides like it was a civil war. Invitations were sent carefully, making sure not to put supporters of Michael and supporters of Anna in the same room. Michael went from being a man excited to become a father to a man who could not even walk into a grocery store without hearing whispers. Then came the reporters. Someone leaked the case to the local news. A headline popped up online. Sister sues brother over $50 million inheritance. Michael's phone rang nonstop. Journalists wanted quotes. Strangers commented on his social media. Some people cheered for Anna, calling her brave for protecting family wealth. Others attacked her, calling her greedy. Claire's name was dragged through the mud. People posted photos of her shopping, claiming it proved she was obsessed with money. Old classmates wrote nasty comments, saying she had always been calculating. Claire sat on the couch crying while Michael deleted hundreds of messages. Michael tried to hold himself together, but the pressure mounted. He stared at the court date stamped in red at the top of the papers. The case was real. It was happening. He looked at Claire's belly where new life was growing and whispered, "This is not what I wanted for us." Claire grabbed his hand and said, "Then we fight. We fight for our child. We fight for our future." For the first time in his life, Michael realized that the inheritance, once a gift, had turned into a curse. His own sister was dragging him into court and the world was watching. The courthouse smelled like old wood and dust. Michael sat at the defendant's table with Claire by his side. She was nervous, her hands resting on her belly, her eyes darting around the crowded room. The benches behind them were full of family members, neighbors, and curious strangers. Reporters filled the back rows, pens and cameras ready. Across the aisle sat Anna. She wore a sharp black suit and looked like she had been preparing for this her entire life. Her lawyers had stacks of binders and folders piled high on their table. She refused to look at her brother. Instead, she whispered to her attorney with a smile that looked like victory before the case had even started. The judge entered, called for order, and the trial began. Anna's lawyer stood first. His voice was smooth and commanding. He declared that Claire had tricked Michael into fatherhood only to gain access to the inheritance. He called it a calculated move to secure wealth that rightfully belongs to Anna. The courtroom murmured. Cameras clicked. Claire's face turned red with fury. She whispered, "That is a lie." Michael squeezed her hand to keep her calm. When it was Michael's turn, his lawyer argued that love and family were not crimes. He said, "This child is not a financial strategy. This is a human life, created by two people who love each other." His words echoed, but you could feel the courtroom was divided. Some nodded, others shook their heads. Then came the testimonies. Anna took the stand. She spoke about loyalty, about how their parents worked their whole lives for that money, about how she would not stand by while an outsider took half of it. She pointed at Claire and said, "She is not family. She is a thief." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Claire jumped up and shouted, "How dare you call me a thief? I never asked for your inheritance. I only want to raise my child." The judge slammed the gavel and barked, "Sit down or you will be removed." Michael followed next, his voice shaking. He admitted he had made mistakes but said, "This child is mine. I take responsibility. Money cannot erase blood. Anna is my sister, but this is my family now." He looked at Claire, then at the judge, his eyes filled with desperation. By the second day, the courtroom no longer felt like a place of justice. It felt like a circus. Reporters snapped photos of Claire as she walked in. Headlines popped up online. Inheritance, baby scandal. People waved signs outside the courthouse. Some cheered for Anna, others for Michael. Inside, the shouting never stopped. Anna's lawyer showed pictures of Claire shopping, waving them like evidence of greed. Claire snapped back, "Those were my paychecks, not your inheritance." At one point, Grandma even took the stand, and her testimony was so bizarre that the judge had to ask her to repeat it twice. She rambled about promises, family legacies, and ended with, "I do not trust women who wear too much perfume." The courtroom laughed until the gavel came down again. By the third day, everyone looked exhausted. Michael had dark circles under his eyes. Claire sat hunched, her pregnancy showing more every day. Anna still looked sharp, fueled by anger and pride. The judge looked out over the chaos and said, "This case is not about perfume. This is not about who shouts the loudest. This is about law. His voice cut through the noise, and for the first time in weeks, the room went quiet. Michael sat there clutching Claire's hand, whispering to himself, "Please, let this end soon." The final day of the trial was tense. The courtroom was packed to the walls. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder in the back. Family members sat stiffly on both sides, glaring at one another. Michael held Claire's hand tightly, his knuckles white. Anna sat tall and proud with her lawyers at her side, her lips pressed into a thin, confident smile. The judge entered, lifted the gavel, and announced, "This court has reached a decision." The air seemed to vanish from the room. Even the cameras stopped clicking. The judge read slowly, carefully, every word echoing like a hammer. He said there was no legal ground for Anna's lawsuit. A sibling cannot strip an unborn child of inheritance rights. The law was clear, the inheritance would remain intact, and Michael's child would be entitled to a fair share as family blood. Anna's face cracked. For the first time, she looked less like a warrior and more like someone who had just lost everything. She whispered to her lawyer, then stood abruptly and stormed out of the courtroom. The cameras followed her, shouting questions, but she said nothing. Michael sat frozen, the words still sinking in. Claire buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing with relief. Reporters rushed forward, flashing cameras in Michael's face. Microphones shoved toward him, voices shouting, "How do you feel? Do you think your sister will appeal? What about the baby?" Michael shielded Claire with his arm, whispering, "Ignore them. Just keep walking." They pushed through the swarm of cameras, down the courthouse steps, into a sea of noise and flashing lights. Strangers debated loudly outside. Some called Claire a hero for standing strong. Others called her manipulative, repeating Anna's accusations. Inside the courthouse, relatives argued. Some hugged Michael. Others muttered that he had destroyed the family legacy. The inheritance had survived, but the family bonds had not. That night, Michael sat at home. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge. Claire slept on the couch, exhausted, her hands resting gently on her belly. Michael walked over, touched the ultrasound photo pinned to the fridge, and stared at it. He whispered, "This child already changed everything." He thought about the inheritance, about the $50 million that had poisoned dinners, holidays, and even blood ties. He realized that no amount of money could replace the sister he had lost. Michael sat back down at the table, the same table where he had once announced the pregnancy, the same table where everything started. He looked around the quiet apartment and said softly to himself, "Family should not be measured in money. It should be measured in love." But I guess some people never learned that. The story ended there. The inheritance was safe. The baby was safe. But the family was broken, torn apart by greed and fear. Thanksgiving dinners would never look the same again. And as Michael turned off the light, the only thing left was the echo of what the judge had said. The law can protect inheritance, but it cannot protect a family from itself. This is the end of that story. It was early morning on the site of a new home. The air was heavy with the smell of sawdust, cement, and freshly cut lumber. Hammers echoed in the distance. Nail guns snapped with sharp bursts. Workers shouted to one another, their voices bouncing off unfinished walls. Mark, the electrician, walked across the site with his tool belt rattling against his side. His boots were worn, covered in dust from years of work. He had been doing this for more than 10 years, wiring homes, fixing problems, and keeping buildings alive with power. Every motion he made was second nature, built from years of repetition. For him, this was not just a job. It was a craft. Mark moved through the skeleton of the house with calm precision. He crouched, pulled wires through beams, checked connections, and tested circuits. To the other workers, it was just cables and outlets. To Mark, it was the hidden heart of the house, veins that would carry energy to every room. He whistled softly as he worked, though his eyes looked tired. He had carried the weight of this company for a decade. He trained apprentices, fixed emergencies at midnight, and worked through storms when no one else would climb a ladder. Deep down, he trusted that his loyalty meant security. He believed that his boss, John, saw that too. John, the owner of the construction company, stepped onto the site. He was dressed in clean boots and a pressed shirt, looking out of place among men covered in dust and sweat. His face carried a heavy look. the kind of face someone wears when they are about to deliver bad news. He held a clipboard, but the papers inside were blank. He was not here to check measurements or review progress. He was here for a conversation he had been avoiding. Mark spotted him and waved. His wave was casual, the kind of greeting between two men who had worked side by side for years. He smiled with respect, expecting to talk about wiring plans or deadlines. John smiled back, but the smile was hollow. His eyes gave away the truth before his words ever could. Mark walked over, wiping his hands on his jeans. He expected another day of routine instructions. Instead, John sighed, looked around at the house's unfinished walls, and said in a low voice, "We need to talk." The words cut through the noise of the construction site. The sound of hammers and drills seemed to fade in Mark's ears. The laughter of workers in the distance turned faint. The two men stood under the wooden frame of the new home, shadows of beams crossing over their faces like bars of a cage. Mark tilted his head, unsure. "What is going on?" His voice was steady, but there was a flicker of worry in his eyes. John looked at him, searching for words. For a moment, neither man spoke. The tension was thick, like a storm building before the first crack of thunder. Mark felt his stomach tighten. He had worked for this company for 10 years. He had wired entire neighborhoods, fixed mistakes no one else could fix, and built trust that should have lasted a lifetime. Now his boss stood in front of him, eyes heavy, lips pressed into a thin line. Mark realized this was not a casual chat. It was something bigger, something darker. The half-built house around them seemed to listen. Every beam, every wire, every nail felt like it was waiting for the first words of a fight neither of them wanted, but both of them knew was coming. Mark crossed his arms, his tool belt clinking softly. He studied John's face, waiting. John shifted his weight, his clean boots pressing into the dust of the unfinished floor. He sighed once, heavy and long, then said quietly, "Mark, times are bad. The economy is falling apart. Buyers are gone. Banks are not lending. I cannot keep everyone on." Mark felt the words hit like a weight on his chest. He blinked and asked slowly, "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" John nodded, not able to meet his eyes. "I am saying I cannot pay you anymore." The sound of a nail gun fired in the background, echoing like a gunshot between them. Mark stood silent for a long moment, his jaw clenched, his breath shallow. Finally, he let out a sharp laugh, not from humor but from disbelief. "After 10 years, after storms, after weekends, after nights, I barely saw my family. You are telling me I am done?" John raised his hands gently. "You know I respect you. You are one of the best electricians I have ever had, but I cannot make money appear out of nowhere. Houses are not selling. I am drowning in debt. If I do not cut people, the entire company will collapse." Mark's voice rose. "And I am supposed to believe there was no other choice? No trucks to sell? No office expenses to cut? No personal sacrifices from the boss? Just cut the workers and walk away clean?" Mark stepped closer, his voice shaking with anger. "John, I remember when this company was 3 men and 1 old truck. I remember wiring homes when we had no permits, when we slept in motels between jobs, when you begged me to stay through the rough years, and I stayed. I stayed every time, and now you repay me like this?" John's shoulders slumped. "I know what you did for me. I never forgot it, but loyalty does not change numbers. The books are empty. If I keep you, I cannot pay others. If I keep everyone, the bank takes everything." Mark shook his head. "So you're saving the company by gutting it. You're saving the ship by throwing the crew overboard." The argument carried across the site. Workers paused. A carpenter set down his hammer. An apprentice peeked from behind a frame. The whole site grew quieter, like an audience leaning in. Mark pointed at the house around them. "Every wire in this place is my work. Every outlet, every circuit. My hands put power into your projects. And you come here, stand in your clean boots, and tell me there is no place for me anymore?" John's face hardened. "I am not standing here as your enemy. I am standing here as a man who has to choose between bad and worse." Mark's fists tightened at his sides. "Do not dress betrayal as business. It is still betrayal." The unfinished house felt smaller with each word. The beams above them cast long shadows that stretched across the floor. Dust hung in the air, swirling in the sunlight, cutting through open windows. Mark's voice dropped low, almost a growl. "If this is your decision, then say it plain. Fire me, look me in the eye and fire me." John's lips pressed tight. He looked at Mark, then finally said the words, "You're done here after today." The silence that followed was louder than the tools, louder than the wind, louder than anything else on the site. The workers stared. The air was thick with shock, and for the first time in 10 years, Mark felt like a stranger in the company he had built with his own hands. Mark's face turned red, his chest heaving. He shouted, 10 years of my life for this company. 10 years of sweat and blood, and you cut me like I am nothing." John snapped back, his own voice rising for the first time. "Do you think I want this? Do you think I enjoy tearing down the people who built this place with me? I am bleeding money, Mark. I am doing everything I can to survive." Mark's voice cracked with rage. "Survive? You're still driving your shiny truck. You're still signing deals with bankers while the rest of us carry ladders and break our backs. Do not tell me you are the one suffering." The workers nearby froze in place, tools in hand, pretending to work but staring with wide eyes. Mark stepped closer, jabbing a finger toward John's chest. "I wired every project you ever bragged about. Remember that mansion on Oak Street? The one you boasted about to investors? I ran cables through every wall while you shook hands and took the credit. Remember the school project when half the crew quit? I stayed. I worked nights. I finished it alone. Where were you? Drinking wine in your office." John shoved his hand away and shouted, "Enough! You think running a business is easy. You think I do nothing. Every late payment, every lawsuit, every bank loan, every meeting, that is me. You think you are the only one carrying weight, but the stress on my shoulders would break you." Mark snarled, "Then maybe you should break instead of breaking me." The sight grew quieter. A hammer dropped with a clang. A group of apprentices stood frozen on the scaffolding, eyes locked on the fight. A foreman coughed awkwardly, but no one moved. Mark pointed to them, his voice echoing. "Look around you, John. Every man here knows the truth. We build your houses. We keep the lights on. We climb the ladders, cut the beams, pour the concrete. Without us, your company is nothing but a name on a piece of paper." John turned slowly, glaring at the workers. "And without me, none of you have jobs. Do not forget who signs your checks." Murmurs spread through the site. The tension was no longer just between two men. It was now between the boss and the crew. Mark's voice lowered, full of hurt rather than anger. "I trusted you. I thought we were building this together. I skipped birthdays. I missed anniversaries. I ruined my back because I believed loyalty mattered. I thought I mattered." John's face softened for a moment, but then hardened again. "You do matter, but loyalty does not pay debts. The world does not reward loyalty. It rewards profit. If you cannot see that, then you never understood the business we are in." Mark shook his head slowly. "No, John. It is not the world that betrayed me. It is you." Mark ripped off his gloves and threw them into the dirt. Dust flew up around them. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling but steady. "If I am gone after today, then say it to everyone. Tell them the truth. Tell them you chose the company over the people who built it." John stared at him, silent, jaw clenched. The workers looked between them, waiting. The wind howled through the unfinished walls. The wires Mark had strung rattled softly, almost like they were listening. The fight was no longer just about a job. It was about betrayal, dignity, and the crumbling bond between two men who had once trusted each other like brothers. Mark's gloves still lay in the dirt, covered in dust. He stepped forward, close enough to see the sweat on John's forehead. His voice was raw. "You are not just firing me. You are erasing me. 10 years of work vanish with a signature. You tell yourself it is survival, but really it is convenience. You protect yourself, and the rest of us are disposable." John's face tightened. He snapped, "Do not twist this into selfishness. I have a payroll of 50 men. I have banks breathing down my neck. You are not the only one carrying weight here. Do you think I sleep at night? Do you think I do not see the faces of every man I have to cut?" Mark shouted back, "Then why does it look so easy for you?" The entire site seemed to hold its breath. For the first time, John's voice cracked. He slammed his clipboard against a beam, the sharp sound making the workers jump. You think I do not feel this? You think I am some monster? Every night I wonder if the company I built is going to collapse in my hands. Every morning I wake up terrified that today will be the day the banks close the doors. You think I wanted to fire you? You were the last one on my list. Mark's anger faltered for just a second. He saw the truth in John's eyes, but his hurt was too deep. He whispered, "Then why me? Why the one who stayed?" By now, every worker had stopped. Tools lay scattered. A saw buzzed idly, forgotten. Men leaned on shovels, helmets tucked under arms. The site had become an arena, and the fight in the middle was more important than any house. One apprentice whispered to another, "Mark kept this place running for years." Another muttered, "John is right, though. If the company sinks, we all go down." The crew was divided, caught between loyalty and fear. Mark turned and gestured to them. "Look at these men, John. They know. Without us, you are nothing but contracts and debt. You keep talking about survival, but you are cutting away the very people who give you life." John's voice dropped low, no longer shouting, but heavy with exhaustion. "You are right. Without you, I am nothing. Without workers, I am just a man with paperwork. But I cannot fight the tide, Mark. The economy is killing us. Buyers are gone. Money is gone. My hands are tied." Mark shook his head slowly, his voice trembling with rage and grief. "No, John. Your hands are not tied. You are choosing who drowns, and you chose me." The silence that followed was painful. Even the wind seemed to stop. Mark's shoulders dropped. His anger had burned down into something colder. He looked at John with eyes full of betrayal. "I thought we were building something together. I thought loyalty meant something. You just proved it never did." John opened his mouth, but no words came. His throat was tight, his jaw locked. He looked away, unable to face Mark. Mark picked up his gloves from the dirt, dusted them once, and slipped them into his belt. He said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "I will finish this job, not for you, but for the family who will live here. After that, I am done. And so is any respect I had left for you." The words hung in the air like thunder. The workers stared at John, waiting for him to reply, but he stayed silent. The breaking point had passed. Nothing would ever be the same again. The argument was over, but the air still buzzed with tension. The workers slowly picked up their tools again, but their movements were slow and uncertain. Nobody laughed, nobody shouted across the site. It was as if the fight had drained the life out of the construction. Mark bent down, grabbed his pliers, and got back to work. He moved like a machine, pulling wires, fastening them in place, twisting them tight. Not a word left his mouth. His eyes were cold, focused only on the cables in his hands. John stood for a while, clipboard hanging at his side. He opened his mouth once, as if to speak, but no sound came. Finally, he turned and walked toward his truck, boots crunching on the gravel. The roar of the engine filled the silence as he drove away without looking back. One by one, workers drifted closer to Mark. They did not speak loudly. They muttered words of respect. One man clapped him gently on the back and said, "You taught me more in a year than anyone else in 5. Another whispered, "This place will not feel the same without you." An apprentice, no older than 20, stood nervously at his side and said, "I learned how to pull my first line from you. I do not want to see you go." Mark gave a small nod but said nothing. His pride was wounded too deeply for words. He only kept working because work was the only thing left that still made sense. As the sun lowered in the sky, Mark's tasks ended. The wires were hidden inside the walls now, tucked away where no one would ever see them, but they would carry life through the house long after he was gone. He unbuckled his tool belt slowly. Each tool came off like part of himself being set down. The gloves, the pliers, the screwdriver, the tester. He packed them into his old bag, the same bag he had carried for a decade. His hands lingered on the tools as if saying goodbye to old friends. The crew watched silently. No one stopped him. No one dared. Mark slung the heavy bag over his shoulder and walked toward the edge of the site. His boots crunched over gravel and dirt. He passed beams, scaffolds, and stacks of lumber, each one a reminder of the years he had given to this company. No one said a word as he walked. Some looked down, ashamed. Others nodded quietly, showing respect in silence. The house loomed behind him, half-finished, wires hidden in its bones like secrets only he would ever truly understand. At the gate, he paused. He turned back once, his eyes scanning the place where he had spent so many years. Then he whispered under his breath, "I built homes for others, but never my own." He walked down the road, the setting sun casting long shadows across the dirt. His thoughts were heavy. 10 years of loyalty had ended with a sentence. 10 years of trust had ended in silence. Yet inside that weight there was also clarity. He realized that no matter how skilled, no matter how loyal in the eyes of business, he was only a number. But he also realized something deeper. His work was not worthless. The wires he strung, the homes he powered, the lights that would shine because of him, those would outlast contracts and bank debts. The company had let him go. The boss had betrayed him, but his craft, his knowledge, and his pride in his work were still his. Mark tightened his grip on the tool bag, lifted his head, and kept walking. The sight behind him faded into silence, but his story was far from over. This is the end of that story. Imagine this. You are about to meet your girlfriend's family for the first time. You know this is a big moment. It is not just a dinner. It is a test. They are going to judge how you eat, how you talk, even how you breathe. In your head, this is either the beginning of a fairy tale or the beginning of a horror movie. That was exactly the situation for our hero Mark. He was nervous, but he told himself he was ready. He had a plan. Unfortunately, life had a different plan, and it was not a kind one. Mark spent the entire week getting ready. He bought a new outfit, thinking a fresh look would boost his confidence. The shirt was crisp white, the kind of shirt you wear when you want to look like you have your life together. The trousers were dark, slim fit, maybe too slim. He tried them on at home and thought, okay, they are tight, but if I just sit up straight and avoid overeating, I'll be fine. He even rehearsed his handshake in the mirror, practiced smiling without looking creepy, and Googled things like, what to say to impress parents at dinner. His search history looked like a survival guide. How to compliment food without sounding fake. What to call your girlfriend's father. Is it normal to bring flowers to a family dinner? By the time the big day arrived, he had built the evening up in his head as a life-or-death event. Mark grabbed flowers for the mom, a bottle of wine for the dad, and told himself, I will walk in there like a gentleman. They will love me. But of course, even before he arrived, disaster had started brewing. His GPS betrayed him. Instead of leading him to the right house, it guided him to a nearly identical-looking 1-2 streets away. He walked up confidently, rang the bell, holding flowers like a romantic movie character. The door opened, and an old man he had never seen before squinted at him and said, "Who are you?" Mark panicked and blurted, "I'm here for dinner?" The old man shook his head, muttered something about crazy kids, and slammed the door. Mark realized he was at the wrong house and was now running late. Sweat was already forming under his collar. When he finally reached the correct address, he was out of breath and flustered. He rang the doorbell, and this time his girlfriend's mother opened the door with a big smile. Mark, in his nervous state, shouted, "Hello!" far too loudly, like he was greeting an audience instead of one woman. He stepped inside, trying to calm down, but immediately bumped into a small table in the hallway. A vase wobbled like it was in slow motion, and he lunged forward to catch it just in time. His girlfriend's mom gave him a polite smile, but Mark could already feel the awkward energy filling the room. And then came the dog, a small, fluffy, supposedly harmless dog that looked like a teddy bear. But this dog instantly decided Mark was an intruder. It barked nonstop, circling his legs like a tiny guard dog. Mark tried to laugh it off, bent down to pet it, and the dog snapped at his fingers. The family chuckled, but Mark's heart was racing. He thought, great! Even the dog hates me. Perfect start. As he removed his shoes, he realized his socks had a small hole near the toe. He curled his foot under to hide it, hoping no one noticed, but of course someone did. The younger brother pointed at his sock and smirked, whispering something under his breath that made everyone laugh. Mark tried to join in, pretending it was funny, but inside he wanted to melt into the floor. Mark followed his girlfriend into the dining room, trying to regain composure. The table looked like something out of a magazine. A spotless white tablecloth, polished silverware, wine glasses that sparkled under the light, and plates perfectly arranged. He thought, okay, this is classy. I just need to stay calm. He sat down, trying to look relaxed, but his too tight trousers immediately reminded him of his mistake. He shifted in his chair, crossed his legs, uncrossed them, then folded his napkin with exaggerated care, hoping no one noticed how uncomfortable he was. The dog had been shut out of the room, but Mark could still hear it scratching at the door and barking faintly. He forced a smile, pretending he was fine, while sweat collected on his back. Dinner began, and Mark thought this was his moment to shine. He picked up his fork, tasted the casserole in front of him, and decided to compliment the chef. With his most confident smile, he said, "This is amazing. You must have picked it up from that fancy restaurant downtown, right?" The room froze. His girlfriend's mother slowly lowered her fork, gave a tight smile, and said, "Actually, I made it myself." Mark's brain screamed. He tried to recover with, "Oh, that's even better. It just tastes so professional, like restaurant quality," but the damage was done. His girlfriend gave him that look that says, "Stop talking before it gets worse." The father, perhaps trying to save the conversation, asked the inevitable question. "So Mark, what do you do for a living?" This should have been an easy one. A simple, confident answer would have worked. Instead, Mark launched into a long explanation filled with technical jargon. He described projects, spreadsheets, industry terms, acronyms that no one else at the table understood. He thought he was showing how smart and ambitious he was. In reality, after 30 seconds, everyone had glazed over eyes. Grandma tilted her head, clearly lost. The younger brother mouthed something to his sister and stifled a laugh. By the time Mark finally wrapped up his short explanation, the table had gone completely silent. Just as he was about to take another bite, it happened. His too tight trousers had had enough. The button gave up, snapping off with a sharp pop that echoed louder than it should have. It flew across the table like a bullet and landed right next to the breadbasket. Every pair of eyes followed it. Mark froze, fork halfway to his mouth, his face turned bright red. He tried to laugh it off with a weak chuckle. "Guess I'm enjoying the food a little too much." No one laughed. The silence was deafening. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, now trying to hold his pants together under the table while pretending nothing was wrong. Inside, he was screaming, "5 minutes in and I'm already falling apart." Mark sat there, clutching his pants under the table with one hand, trying to act like nothing had happened. The family pretended not to notice, but the air was thick with awkwardness. His girlfriend gave him a forced smile that basically meant, "Please stop embarrassing me." He thought, "Okay, I can fix this. I just need to be charming." He tried to restart small talk. "So, Mrs. Peterson, you have a beautiful home. Did you decorate it yourself?" The mom nodded proudly. But then Mark ruined it by adding, "It feels like one of those model homes they use for real estate tours." He thought it was a compliment. Everyone else thought he was calling the house fake. In a desperate attempt to lighten the mood, Mark decided to tell a funny story from his past. He launched into a tale about how, in college, he once burned popcorn so badly in a microwave that the fire alarm went off and the whole building evacuated. He laughed at his own story. No one else laughed. Grandma shook her head. The dad stared at him with the kind of look that says, "This guy is dating my daughter?" His girlfriend poked him under the table to stop talking, but it was too late. The silence was suffocating. Just when Mark thought it couldn't get worse, the family cat jumped onto the dinner table. Everyone else was used to it, but Mark was not. He panicked. He waved his hands to shoo it away, but instead of leaving, the cat walked straight across the plates and knocked over a full glass of red wine. The wine spread across the perfect white tablecloth, soaking napkins, and worst of all, dripping directly onto Grandma's bright white sweater. Mark leapt out of his chair, grabbed napkins, and rushed to help. In his panic, he forgot about the wine on the floor. His foot slipped, and suddenly he was skating across the dining room like a failed figure skater. He grabbed the edge of the table to stop himself, which caused every plate and glass to rattle. For a split second, it looked like he was going to take down the entire dinner spread. He managed to steady himself, but his napkin was already pressed against Grandma's sweater in a way that looked less like helping, and more like smearing the stain around. Grandma's eyes narrowed. Mark sat back down slowly, cheeks burning, heart pounding. The family stared at him in silence. His girlfriend's father folded his arms. The younger brother covered his mouth to hide a laugh. His girlfriend shook her head, already regretting inviting him. Mark thought to himself, "This is it. I am living inside a nightmare. I am one mistake away from them kicking me out of the house." And the worst part? He was right. Mark was still crouched next to Grandma, awkwardly pressing napkins against her sweater, which only spread the red stain into larger blotches. Grandma looked down at him with narrowed eyes and finally said, "Young man, I think you've done enough." That sentence hit him like a hammer. He quickly pulled back, mumbling something like, "Sorry, I was just trying to help." He sat back down, now officially enemy number one at the table. Grandma dabbed her sweater with surgical precision, muttering under her breath, and Mark swore he heard the word, "Idiot." Just when the situation could not get worse, the cat, clearly enjoying the chaos, hopped back onto the table. This time it went straight for the chicken platter. Mark, desperate to redeem himself, lunged forward to grab it. In the process, his elbow knocked over the salt shaker, which toppled into the gravy boat, splashing gravy across the table. Everyone gasped. The cat escaped with a piece of chicken, leaving Mark frozen, his arm still outstretched like he was caught mid-crime. He pulled back slowly, face burning, thinking, "Why am I even alive right now?" Throughout all this, Mark had barely heard a word from his girlfriend's father. The man sat quietly, chewing slowly, sipping his wine, and watching Mark like a judge at a criminal trial. Every once in a while he raised an eyebrow, as if silently keeping score of Mark's failures. Trying to break the tension, Mark finally addressed him. "So, Mr. Peterson, do you, like sports?" The father looked at him, paused, and said, "I like silence." Then he went back to eating. The table went dead quiet. Mark wanted to crawl under the floorboards. In a final, desperate attempt to connect with someone, Mark turned to his girlfriend's younger brother. "So, you must be in high school, right?" The brother smirked and said, "Actually, I graduated 2 years ago." The whole table chuckled at the brother's sharp response, but it was not a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that said, "We're all laughing at you, not with you." Mark tried to cover it with, "You look young for your age, that's a good thing." But it was too late. He had officially insulted yet another family member. By now, Mark's shirt was sticking to him with sweat, his trousers were half unbuttoned under the table, and his dignity was in tatters. He looked at his girlfriend, silently begging for help. She gave him the kind of smile you give when you know a relationship might not survive the evening. The table, once filled with polite conversation, was now filled only with the sound of clinking silverware and Mark's nervous chewing. Every bite felt like a countdown to his final humiliation, and deep down he knew it was coming. Mark sat at the table, barely holding himself together. His trousers had lost their button. Grandma hated him. The cat had stolen half the chicken, and the father was treating him like background noise. He thought, "I cannot recover from this. My only chance is to leave with whatever dignity I still have." So as soon as the plates were cleared, he stood up and announced with a shaky smile, "Thank you all so much for dinner. It was lovely. Lovely." That was the word he chose, even though dinner had been a war zone. As he went around shaking hands, he looked at his girlfriend's father, determined to show respect. He extended his hand firmly and said, "It was a pleasure, Mr. Johnson." Silence. Dead silence. The man's name was Peterson. Johnson was the neighbor down the street. The father slowly shook his hand anyway, but the icy look in his eyes told Mark he would never live this down. Mark's girlfriend's jaw dropped, and her brother muttered, "Oh my God," under his breath. Trying to escape the awkwardness, Mark rushed to the hallway to grab his coat. He put it on quickly, desperate to leave. But just as he reached for the door, her brother shouted, "That's my jacket." Mark froze. He looked down. Too small, wrong style, definitely not his. He mumbled an apology, ripped it off, and tried to laugh. No one laughed with him. He finally grabbed his own coat, but his hands were trembling so badly that he almost dropped it twice. He stepped out the door, relieved that it was finally over. He turned to close the door politely behind him, wanting to show at least one gesture of respect. He pulled it shut with a smile, only to hear the sharp click of the lock. Everyone inside gasped. Mark had just locked the entire family out of their own home. They all rushed to the door. The mother checked her pockets. No keys. The father stared at Mark with an expression that could kill a man. The brother burst out laughing, which only made it worse. Grandma sighed dramatically like she had predicted this all along. Mark stammered, "Oh, I didn't mean to." But no words could fix the fact that he had ended the night by literally locking them out of their own house. His girlfriend quickly grabbed her spare keys, opened the door again, and let everyone back inside. Mark stood on the porch, half in, half out, unsure if he should go back in to apologize or run into the night and never return. Her father gave him one final glare and said, "Good night, Mark." It was not a warm good night. It was the kind of good night that feels like a death sentence. Mark muttered a final, "Thank you," waved awkwardly, and walked down the street, clutching his jacket, his flowers long forgotten, his pride completely destroyed. Every step felt like he was marching in the world's slowest walk of shame. The story is end. Imagine this. It's your first date. Romantic dinner, cozy vibes, everything feels perfect, and then the greatest enemy of mankind appears, the toilet, which decides to betray you at the worst possible moment. Today I'll tell you a story that became a legend on Reddit, and trust me, you'll never forget it. So, meet our main character. A young guy nervous because it's his first date with a girl he really, really likes. She invited him over, they're laughing, having dinner, and flirting a little. Everything is going smoothly, and then nature calls. You know exactly what I mean. He politely excuses himself, heads to the bathroom, and at this point, nothing seems suspicious. He does his business. All fine so far, but when he presses the flush, the water swirls, makes some noise, and then nothing. No result. The toilet just sits there silently like an enemy in disguise. And then panic sets in. He thinks, "I can't just leave this here. She'll come in right after me and see everything. It's our first date. It's over." His brain starts racing with options. Maybe flush again? No, it only made things worse. Maybe with my hands? Ugh, no way. What if I throw it out the window? But it's the second floor. Time is ticking, his heart is racing, and he needs to make a decision. And then a brilliant plan is born. He finds a plastic bag. Yes, my friends, a bag. And he starts the evacuation. He ties up the bag like it's some kind of dangerous package, thinking, okay, I'll sneak it out later. But another problem shows up. How do you walk through the living room on a first date holding a suspicious bag? And the window is too small, so that's not an option either. So our genius decides, I'll hide it. She'll never find it. And he hides the bag behind the radiator in the bathroom. You can probably guess what happened next. Of course she found it. Imagine this moment. She walks in, notices a strange bag, opens it, and discovers exactly what he tried to hide. He's standing there red as a tomato. She's in complete shock. And the romance? Gone in an instant. This story went viral on Reddit and became one of the most famous cringeworthy date stories ever. Thousands of people laughed, sympathized, debated, but everyone agreed, this is pure nightmare fuel for anyone. The moral? Always check the plumbing before a date. And remember, any cringe moment you try to hide can become an internet legend. Now tell me in the comments, what was your most embarrassing date story? I'll read out the funniest ones in the next video.